Yo, what's up guys? Another video in the series of Up Yo Artifact game talking about crit damage. So we all know crit damage for Lucian. Let me rune up this Lucian for a sec. So Lucian is looned up. Let's look at the stats. So these are the current stats. This is my Lucian I use in Arena Offense. You've seen it in a whole bunch of videos. What we're not gonna look at today is this one, which I got recently, which is really good. I haven't even checked like how much damage increase is. But we're gonna look into crit damage. So firstly, we're gonna look into how much does he does with 0 crit damage, then adding like some crit damage artifact. We're not necessarily in this video gonna talk about how much better is crit damage versus damage from attack or that kind of stuff. That will be in a separate video. This video is just purely about the crit damage, where to use it, what does it change, and that kind of stuff. So Lucian is the most common like thought of unit to think about when using crit damage, so that's the one I use as an example. But in this case, I'm gonna remove all of the other stats and just find one that's just purely crit damage based on a base attack. Or first one that has like 0 base, or that has just a base attack, no crit damage, and then we're starting with the crit damage. Okay, took me a while to find one, but I actually have one that has no damage increasing stats, but just has an attack base, which apparently is more difficult to find. So for this test, I didn't want to add like any extra fight runes or attack lead or anything like that. So Martina, test subject again. You're gonna die today, Martina, a couple of times. So let's boost that up and let's see how much damage we put out. So about 13k. Okay, let's add in some crit damage. So I found a really good one, which is just purely crit damage, nothing else, no additional stats, so we can actually see the difference. So let's see. We add about 500 damage for 19% crit damage, which is an increase of like about 4% of the total amount of damage, which is not that much. It is a decent amount, sure it adds up, but it is not that much. So let's see for another unit. Let's see, we would go for a unit which actually cares about like an armor break. So let's see who we can find. So we're going for Rocky. Rocky S3, similar thing as Lucian. Let's see, same runes, how much damage she does, and then compare it. So we're hitting about 14k. Let's add the crit damage. Having the crit damage on her, let's see how much we do. Okay, so the first hit was 14,700. The other one is 14,900, almost like 300 more. So it's kind of like inconsistent. So again, we have an increase of about like 3.5 to 4%. So then the thing is, let's see if we put an armor break in there, because the damage from attack scaling is not that much reliant on armor break. Crit damage is. So let's see if that has a bigger factor. Okay, we got the armor break, we got the crit damage, 36k. Well, it's pretty inconsistent. That's kind of annoying that the damage is that like high of like a value of difference. So it was 36 on the first one and 35 on the second one. So with crit damage or with ignored defense, it's easier to test. So the previous one was with, let's try without. $34 and 33. So that is actually a decent increase. Then we're talking like still it's probably like pretty big increase of having like armor break or not having armor break. So that is a big factor if you have armor breaks. If your crit damage is highly depending on your armor break. The moment you have an armor break, a crit damage just works a lot better than without. So that's a good base to know in general. So then let's look at something else. Let's say you have a unit that has a lot of attack. Because now we're looking at the unit, there's 250 crit damage. You just add another 19 crit damage. It is not that much technically. But let's say you have a unit that has a lot of attack or has a different scaling and doesn't have that much crit damage in general, but then you add the crit damage. So let's see what's the difference between that. Let's pull out Diana for that reason. So currently using my Diana. My Diana is actually on a crit rate slot 4, but it has a lot of substats for the crit damage in this build. We do not have any artifacts. I just threw in like anything on this slot because it actually had like additional crit damage as well. I threw in like anything, just some extra attack. And let's see how much damage we do, and then again let's check it when we add some crit damage. So I'm not actually using the attack buff, I'm just using it to speed up my Diana over Martina speed. We do about 2Ks. Okay, I just figured out an issue. All of my Diana S2 artifacts actually have this. They have additional stats as well. So okay, just to keep it short, what thing I was aiming for is if your crit damage is on a lower, especially if you have like a crit rate build, then I don't care searching for a unit. I can just explain to you how it works. If you have a unit that has lower crit rate, adding more crit damage is probably more beneficial than having like a higher crit damage unit. Because of course, if you add, let's say a max, like a super high roll, 30 roll, a 30 roll values way more if you have 50 crit damage compared to if you already have 300 crit damage. It's just like how steep is your increase by adding that crit damage. So that's something you have to take in account when you rune any unit. And therefore also some units in RTA actually become more useful with a crit rate build than a crit damage build if you actually want them to crit. Let's say a Han, you really care about critting, but having for a crit damage slot 4 might be difficult. Also a Barbara, if you do not crit on S3, you might not have enough damage to give that push to make your team follow up. So having a slot 4 crit rate can actually be beneficial. Even for other Beast Riders or any other unit that is typically more difficult to rune, starts with a 15 base crit rate. Diana is also a pretty good example. In this case, I have a Diana with quite a lot of crit damage just based from like any other stats. But it could be more difficult for you to actually go without the crit rate rune, but then you can fix it with crit damage. But the thing is, the moment you already have a crit damage rune, your crit rate artifact or your crit damage artifact will not be that great. So now let's talk about the three new lines. So the 3 new lines are single hit crit damage. So that's only on your own turn and single hit. There's a whole bunch of units that can benefit like pretty highly from that. So, and those are just like, for example, a Marsha is really good on that. I would say a Daphnes is pretty good on that. What other units like Pernas, that kind of stuff would be pretty good. Vanessa maybe, but I would focus that more on the lines. And the thing is, you can put it on the left artifact as well, so you can put it actually on the element artifact. So it's best used on a unit, of course, that has all 3 skills which are single target and only do that on their own terms. So not like a Miho or a Laika that counters and that kind of stuff, because it doesn't count on the counter. You could still use it on those units, so also like Ragdolls, that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of units that can work really good with it. So that's pretty straightforward. Again, if you use those, it's better to have a unit with lower base crit damage from your runes, then the crit damage artifact will have more impact. Not saying you have to lower your crit damage, but you can opt to go for other stats, lower the crit damage, and then get the crit damage from your artifact. So there you can kind of trade off like, okay, what does more damage in my case? So then we have the new one, which I actually didn't really test yet, but I'm gonna test right now, which is artifact damage from good and artifact damage from bad HP. What does it mean? What does it do? I think, and I could be wrong here, I think there's just a counter that if you have crit damage from good XP, you will get like, let's say you have 10 crit damage on good HP. On 10, you will get the 10 crit damage, or like on 100% HP, you will get 10 crit damage. On 50% HP, you will get 50% of that value, so you get 5 crit damage. I could be wrong here, but that's my guess how it could work. Could be wrong here. So let's see if we add some of those artifacts, and I do actually have one here. So we have a pretty interesting one here, which is crit damage from good on a wind artifact. Let's add in that one. And on the other side, I just reverted the normal crit damage that I have. It would actually be, no, I think I'm gonna remove this because it would be more beneficial to see like the actual crit damage increase, which is more steep if I have less crit damage, and therefore I'm gonna remove this to just having whatever I want to have, as little useful things as possible. Actually, let's just add in that one. So technically on good HP, we would have what I think a 160 crit damage, and the lower the HP of the enemy goes, the more reduced that will be. For this setup, I am going to armor break, because that way we can actually see like some differences in the damage more than without. Okay, so we have our defense break. I have no clue how much. So we got. It doesn't really decrease. So we got, I think we got like 5.9, 5.7, 5.7, and a 5.6. So it's not that steep of a decrease. Let me actually change some runes that we do more damage from, because 17 crit damage is not that much in general, like on this high crit damage already. So let's actually remove a few crit damage runes to see like a better change in that. So I removed pretty much all of my crit damage. I upped my attack somewhat. So actually more damage comes from the attack right now than from the crit damage. Let's see if we see more of like an impact based on like these 17 extra crit damage. Because 17 extra crit damage based on an 85 is a lot more than based on like 143, of course. Okay, let's see how much damage this does. Wait, so we got 5k, 4.9, 4.3, and then the last hit, which is... We see a really small decrease, right? We see an insane small decrease. That barely does anything, man. So, interesting. Thing is, I would kind of like to see the difference with just that artifact compared to no artifact like that. Because my damage pretty much just dropped while we're doing like 70%. Yeah, so the last hit was around 50% of the HP of Martina. We dropped like 70 in damage, which is not that much in general. Okay, so I found an artifact that might be easier to test it with. So I'm gonna change this one to just another +9 that doesn't have any stats like afterward this one. And then I'm just gonna do this one comparing to how much damage I would do with the other one. So let's first see with. And I think the one from bad is just the same but other way around. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna like in-depth test that as well, but I might check that out as well. Okay, so for this one, I also added in an attack buff so we can actually see the HP bar dropping a bit more than with the other setup. So this is an 11%. So we got 9, 5, 5, 9. Last hit. We're doing more. Wait, this is from good, right? Yeah, this is supposedly from HP good. Is it not? I'm confused about this thing. Why did the damage go up? The damage should go down. This is HP good. Don't have any... Why the fuck did the damage go up? I'm so confused about this stat. And here I'm sitting like trying to explain you shit while I'm even confused on this thing. Okay. So actually, let's try that again. 0.6, 0.5. Or is the last hit always more? No, this makes sense. This is a sequence that makes sense. We saw like increments of like 100 damage down. So that's kind of what I'd expect. So the lower the HP get, the more your 17 crit damage is like depleted. Let's actually see the other way around. If that works like that as well. I have no clue why the other test went so weird. Yeah, so this is one with crit damage for bad HP. So actually, let's see the crit damage for bad HP. And for this, I do actually want to up like the damage by a bit. Just giving extra attack on whatever stat. Okay, so this is 20% damage from bad. So we expect an increase in damage. Got 6, we got 8, we got 8 again. And then we got... Yeah, we got 6, 8. And then it does have a decent increase. I believe that. So let's try that one more time. Yeah, 6, 8, 6, 6, 6, 7. What can... And then this one 7, 1. So it does increase, but there's like this variance that just like... So it's a little bit difficult to test. But this is what it means for like damage up and damage down, it's seen. Or damage from good HP and damage from bad HP. So I think what I said is pretty accurate. Put it in the comments if I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong. If someone can explain it better than me, I'll just pin that one. But I think like how it works is you start off with like 100 base. So if you have crit damage from good, you start at 0. The moment the HP is full, the moment they're at 0 HP, you get your 20 crit damage. And the other way around, if you have 20 from good, then you start at 20. The moment the HP is 0, you have 0. So if it works like that, I think it works. then which units would be good for doing this? Which units would be good for having like HP good or HP bad? Well, in general, I think focusing on HP bad is not that great. There's probably a few options that, like if you have a really good artifact, because of course the scaling on HP bad is better than the scaling on HP good. So let's actually see the difference. So this one has both. So there's actually a double scaling for HP bad over HP good. So it's a lot better. It's like legit double better. But HP bad, you can't really focus on too much, to be honest. Like, let's say you have a 2-shot setup where you mow long something first and then it's low HP and then you kill something. But a lot of the times these units are also like heavy kill potential, like an Icarus or anything like that. So I don't really think that's necessarily good. Also, what you saw is like the damage increases over time. So let's say for a Lucian, it's pretty good because you Lucian at like different let's say for Lucian, it's a good like side stat. It's a side stat line which can work out pretty decent. But the thing is, you're gonna Lucian if you amputation magic and you go for like a clean kill that you actually do like, let's say 101% damage. You're gonna hit one card at 100%, one card at 33, and one card at like 66, kind of. So therefore, both of them have the same value if you kill. So if you don't kill or if you overkill, like your first card is like 50% already, then the values do change a bit. So for that kind of unit, it could be useful. For a unit, I would say the good one is really good is, for example, a Zyros or a Pungbeak or anything that goes like 100 to 0 kill, like straight up. It would be really good. And I think for units like Diana, you can get away with the one that says like bad, or for example a Stella if you use that in your offense, or yeah, I think that's mainly the case. So the one for good is what you want to put on one-shotters, and the one for bad is probably what you want to put on multi-hitters. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, but the one that says like the HP from bad, like the bad HP, I see less usage for it because you cannot assume something is low HP. Especially in RTA, if you have like a bruiser setup, that kind of stuff, it's more difficult. Well, if you check it from the other perspective, let's say you're fighting with a Pisama and you put it for like the condition is bad, then you could say like, okay, the moment Pisama gets killed, his S3, let's say the enemy doesn't have any sustain, that's why you use Pisama, which is a smart play. Then it's like, okay, but all of these units are probably lower HP and therefore I up my crit damage. Could work. I think there's some niche works here and there. So I think that's it for this video. Interesting stat, but I wouldn't focus on it too much, to be honest. Like, I think the crit damage one is more like, okay, it's nice if you have these kind of rolls. But I think not the next video, but the video afterwards, I'm gonna talk about, okay, let's compare the crit damage compared to like attack increasing effects and those kind of like effects. Like, let's see what's actually better damage. But that's something I have to test out, so that will be in for that video. So if you made it all the way through, like this video, subscribe to the channel, don't miss out on the future ones. There's a whole couple of videos that I've already posted, so watch those as well, that kind of stuff. So guys, thanks for watching, see you in the next one.